Hi everybody, I'm Bryan Mudd, a fan of South Plains politics. Here's your talking points for this week. Effective tax rates have gone the way of crowded football stadiums. The problem for all of us during budget season is that local leaders think effective rates can't pay the bills. And if you're having a hard time paying your own bills right now, we'll hook you up with an awesome and ultimately patriotic second job.
From the studios of KAMC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points with Bryan Mudd.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Also this week, passing the pressure. How many of you would do something knowing full well that if you do it, attorneys will get called and you'll get sued? It'd have to be something you were pretty passionate about, right? And I don't know many issues that bring about more passion than abortion. Forever a state and national debate that state lawmakers have now dropped firmly at the feet of Lubbock City Council, asking them to pass an ordinance declaring this a sanctuary city for the unborn before Planned Parenthood reopens here. Remember, they want to do that this year. It would effectively outlaw abortions here, and since abortion remains legal in this country, passing this could put the city in legal liability that your tax dollars would have to be used to defend. Is this passing the buck or sharing the moral burden? KAMC's Amy Kuzera found that Senator Charles Perry and local clergy argue it's the latter.
There's a $2,000 civil penalty for any provider or physician or someone involved in doing it. It exempts the mom, and it creates additional standing for lawsuits. So a grandparent or someone in that family can actually sue.
Senator Perry says the ordinance has already been adopted by 14 other cities in Texas. 7 of them were challenged by the ACLU. ACLU dropped the suit after a few modifications to the ordinance and walked away. The church was packed with supporters, and as you can see, few wore masks or stayed socially distant. Church leaders from across the city spoke at the conference, each sharing their support for the ordinance. Senator Perry says Mike Lee Dixon drafted the ordinance, and he says he will actively oppose the organization if they come to Lubbock.
This is something that needs to be decided now. We can't wait on this. This needs to be put on the agenda and put for a vote. And if the mayor and city council wants to prevent the murder of innocent children in this city, then they need to pass this ordinance.
Amy Kuzera, KAMC News.
All right, and we are always pleased to welcome in Lubbock City Manager Jared Atkinson to the show. Good to see you again, my friend.
Bryan, thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, so making Lubbock a sanctuary city for the unborn. Sounds great to a lot of folks on paper, I know. Is it doable here?
Well, we don't know that just yet.
Okay.
So where we stand on that, we do have a proposed ordinance that's been tendered. That has been submitted to the legal department, city attorney's office. They'll use themselves and possibly some outside professionals. And when they get all of that put together, we will brief the council. That's the opportunity then for the council to give instruction on how to proceed.
A lot of folks have not gone forward with this because the potential for legal costs and the ramifications of that come, they can be problematic to cities. The ordinance, I know, as presented by Senator Perry and others, says that cities would have the right to do this because of the precedent of an undue burden standard. Supporters say that's not the case. Is that what the city attorney is looking into? Is it more than that?
It is more than that. Okay. Certainly the undue burden clause, that has actually been settled in several different pieces of courtroom activity.
Okay.
They will look at that as well as the entirety of the rest of that ordinance and provide their advice.
If outside entities would agree to pay for or handle some of the legal issues that come up from this sort of ordinance where the city's not on the hook for a lot of things, does that change anyone's way of thinking on this if that's the case?
Well, I don't think it will change whatever the advice or the opinion will be from the city's legal team,
right,
and from any outside experts we employ to do that. As it relates to potentially the defense, and that's what's offered in the letter that came to us, there are times the city uses outside counsel. That ultimately, though, is a decision of the city council and would be made at that point.
Okay. The mayor and some others taking some heat for this, and here we are in an election cycle again and all of the ramifications of that. Does the politics of this or any other things that can and will come up affect what you do and the planning of things on your end?
Well, it can, certainly. You know, when things are brought forward to the city council, often they are going to look to staff. They're going to look to me to study it, to provide opinions, to provide recommendations. So to that extent, certainly, yes.
Hey, let's enjoy something here. The new budget's done.
Yes, enjoy the budget's being finished.
Man, you have no idea the work that goes into from people in all kinds of departments. Explain to folks again, because this is the number one thing they always want to know. that's lesser, or the flat tax rate that's not an effective rate? What is all this?
Go through that real quick.
Okay.
So most of us are familiar with the concept of the effective rate and the rollback rate.
Right.
That terminology has changed this year. Effective rate simply is that rate that gives us the exact same amount of money from the exact same amount of properties that we did in the prior year. So new growth sits off to the side. Rollback's a mathematical calculation. A year ago, if we had 8% more revenue on those same properties, we're subject to a rollback. We don't use rollback anymore. We use voter approval rate, and we've dropped from 8 to 3.5%. New terminology, same concepts, a little bit different math. So how that played out here this year, your current tax rate in the city of Lubbock is 55.802 pennies. We are lowering that rate to 54.157 pennies. That is still slightly above the no new revenue rate. In fact, it's over it by just 1.06%. So we did not hit the no new revenue rate, but some interesting things happen in the calculation. And I'll look at single family residential. Most of us are in a home, and we're going to pay that bill. So if you look at single family residential, last year, according to Lubbock Central Appraisal District, average home in Lubbock valued at $155,000 and change. This year, $157,000 and change. If you apply the appropriate tax rates to them, that's a little over a 3% increase. So last year's rate to last year's value, this rate to the new value. If your home did not go up by more than the average 3.04%, your tax bill from the city will stay flat. That's not going to happen for everybody.
Right.
77,000 residential parcels. Some were less than 3, a few are going to be right at 3, some will be greater. If you are at the 3% increase or less, your tax bill will stay the same or go down. If you were above, it will go up slightly.
With that, and all the new growth, and it certainly helps with all of this, the first thing you notice on this is the ability to pay down a lot of debt again, and still keep at least some larger capital projects in the budget. Where do we stand on some of those?
Well, first, and thanks for bringing it up, debt.
Yeah.
The proposed budget pays down the city's total outstanding debt by just under $108 million. Council's been very dedicated to that. They've stayed on that priority. We have followed through, and you're starting to see that as it comes down. So it's 107.8 if you want the actual number, million. Capital projects, probably the two that will catch